Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jon Myer Podcast. Now, this is typically where I talk to you about a specific topic. Well, in this case, we have a special guest joining us here at AWS reInvent. How about we give that guest a moment to introduce themselves?
I'm Jeff Barr, Vice President and Chief Evangelist for AWS. I've been at Amazon for 21 years. This is reInvent number 12 for me. And John, really looking to speaking with you.
Jeff, reInvent number 12? Wait, is that how many reInvents there's been so far?
This is number 12.
You started off doing AWS, evangelizing AWS, going around and talking to people about AWS. And did you ever imagine that reInvent would be this big?
Oh, not at all. The amazing thing about being part of one of these revolutionary kinds of events or occurrences, whatever, you never quite understand how big it is as you're in the middle of it. Things are getting progressively better day after day after day, but no one ever like notifies you and say, okay, suddenly what you're doing is like world changing or game changing or smashing success. It's just this steady step by step progression of getting a little better each and every day.
I really look forward to reInvent every year. I think I start planning the moment reInvent ends for the following year because I look forward to connecting with people, networking, doing a lot of content and recording. And it's one of those learning conferences that I don't think I could do anywhere else. What do you look forward to from reInvent?
So what I love about it is exactly what you just said, the connecting. So I was actually just thinking as you said that I spend the 2 months ahead of reInvent creating great content. I work with all the different service teams to learn about their launches and to use the services, write blog posts and share the blog posts with the hope that people will read those and find them useful and informative, and they'll be able to put that to use and improve themselves, which is awesome. But then I kind of think, um, well, maybe all that's just this advertisement so people can actually meet me in person. But I love the fact that my content, people use it to learn and to improve themselves, maybe make a nice step forward in their careers. And it's so amazing to be able to talk to people and to hear from them directly, face to face, that they benefited from something that I did. And what I love about that is it's not always immediate. I talked to somebody today and they said the most touching thing. He said, Jeff, I literally grew up on your blog post, which is like, wow, that's just super, super amazing. And I love that. And I take it very seriously. To me, there's this real responsibility to your audience that you want to make sure you give them high quality content that's brief, it's to the point, it's something that they're going to be able to make use of, but also that it's as accurate as possible. I shoot for 100% accuracy. I beat myself up mercilessly if I make even the smallest technical mistake in what I do.
Jeff, that's actually one of the ways that we met is I reached out to you and I said, Jeff, I grew up on your blog post. I grew up learning AWS, doing this stuff. Hey, you got a few moments for coffee? And all of a sudden I got a reply on the email. Yeah, sure, John. And I was like, wow, this is so surreal. Did you ever imagine that you would be so well known within the community around the content you create for AWS?
I 100% never imagined it, and I really love it. And I like it for the fact not to be like a celebrity. It's more the fact that what I've done has made a difference in people's lives, and it's all about that. And it's such a privilege to be able to do that and to be able to educate folks just a little bit and to maybe just kind of give them a little bit of an inflection point or kind of affect the slope of their learning in a positive way. And for them to come up and tell me that they liked it, that it helped them in some way, and that maybe even changed their life in some substantial way, it's beyond gratifying. It's something that each and every one of those conversations I take to heart. I commit that conversation to memory, and the next time I'm writing, I almost think I am literally writing for that specific person that I met.
When I read your content and I work through your blog posts, they're not about a quick news article. Here's how you can do it. Like here's the highlights. You actually walk people through it technically. I can follow your stuff step by step and I understand it and I want to implement it and I want to learn more about the services, the new stuff that's released. You get like firsthand knowledge to play around with it. And that's one of the reasons I think that drives the community to read your stuff is the hands-on ability understand that you are technical and you're learning it just like we are.
Exactly right. And I would never profess to be an expert in all of the services that I write about. And quite often, what I'm doing is I'm just like everybody else. I'm in this like instantaneous learning mode. A new service pops up. I've got to refresh myself on the predecessors if it's some new feature, or I might have to learn something entirely new. but I always do it myself. I always do it hands on. Occasionally, we'll have some teams that, with the best of intent and trying to help, they'll say, let's make this easy for you. We'll take some of the screenshots or we'll give you an outline. I thank them for their very generous offer, but I say I have to be authentic to myself and to my audience. And unless I cannot honestly say I wrote this, I did this, I used this, unless I really did. And I think my personal sense of integrity would just crumble pretty quickly if I were to be ghost written. And on the other side of that, I'm often helped out by other members of the team. They might give me some sample code. It could be a CloudFormation template, but I do my best to acknowledge the fact that there has been help behind the scenes. I think credit goes both ways, and I would never want to take credit for someone else's work ever. So if a team helped me out to give me a little boost in a situation where I didn't fully know what was going on, I will say my teammates supplied me with whatever. And just to me, that's just the being just brutally honest about what's going on.
And very respectful for them, and it's definitely appreciative giving, like, a shout out that they've helped you, accomplish these. Jeff, do you have, like, specific numbers? Every year, you write so many blog posts, so many articles leading up to reInvent. Are there a number of ones that you do every year, and does it get greater and greater, or what does it look like? Because I know when they release services, there's, like, 20 this year, now we do, like, 30 next year, and there's so much information. Do you keep metrics on that?
I'm not very much into the metrics, and we should talk about that as a separate question because that's a wonderful aside. This year, leading up to and for reInvent, I wrote 25 blog posts. I think we published most of those. I think one or two of the services we decided we would launch a little bit later. They weren't quite as fully baked as we'd like before they're ready for our customers. I don't tend to look a lot at the metrics for the individual blog posts. Um, I've the reason I do that, first, it's a little bit difficult to get to them given the way our system works, to be totally honest. But second, even if a post doesn't is not a record breaker, that doesn't mean that some set of customers didn't. It wasn't the absolute essential posting for them. And so, if I were to say, well, let me focus only on the important things, well, sometimes it's those niches and those special use cases that are really in need of a particular piece of content. So I I'm sure the metrics are good, just judging on the number of people that are always telling me that they appreciate them. But I honestly think if I knew them really well, I'm not quite sure how they would be helpful to me. On the other hand, I do like to look at my social media metrics. I've put a lot of energy this past year into getting better at using LinkedIn, for example, and it's fascinating to watch not just the impressions, but to also watch just the demographics and to know that my audience is developers and system administrators, for example. Knowing those is wonderful, knowing the different parts of the world where they come from. I find that not just helpful, but again, I like to imagine my customer, my audience. And if I can think of, okay, we've got developers out there building things, that helps me to really sharpen my focus of how I'd like to think about them. But the funny thing with the social media, you never know what's going to be the runaway bestseller. You'd think, okay, there's times when you spend quite a while getting every word of a post just right, and the posts and the diagrams and the pictures, and you're like, this is cool, everybody's going to love it, and you have great expectations, and then sometimes you get them, sometimes not, but then sometimes you do something super simple. 2 days ago, I was in the registration area. I saw the famous S3 bucket mascot
I
going
saw
by.
that post. You said, "Finally, I got a picture with S3."
Bucket was just
Yep.
standing there and doing the bucket thing. That post is at 290 something thousand impressions for 30 seconds worth of work. So one never ever actually knows what's going to be the right things.
You never know what's gonna be a hit in social media and LinkedIn, and I know you had an uptick in posts this year with LinkedIn and really doubling down with it. I've seen them. I've seen you actually grow within your posts, all everything that you're sharing with everybody, and I know you sharing all the stuff that happening at reInvent is helping some of that, like, generate some of that interest. Back on the reInvent topic, what does your schedule look like typically while you're out here?
So my schedule starts pretty early, and while we have a wonderful time here and we have a lot of fun, it's grueling fun. I remember Monday morning, I left the room before 7. I was busy all day with game days, with customer meetings. I spent a lot of time in the peer talk lounges, meeting one on one with customers. I spent some time in the expo hall. I took lots and lots of selfies with folks, which is always fun. I got back to my room about 11 that night. thoroughly tired with 300 fresh emails I actually needed to get through before I really felt that the day was finished. Woke up the next morning bright and early to several hundred more. And because we're doing launches and because we've got meetings, there's really no option that says leave those all for later. This is a wonderful pace you can sustain for a week or two at a time. It's not something that one could do for much longer without actually physically melting down. So really intense. And then in the evenings, we've got various parties to go to, which are more socializing and more saying hello and getting to meet people and getting to take selfies with them. It's just incredibly intense fun.
I agree with you that you can sustain this for a week or 2, but anything after that, you just have to, like, go silent. You gotta be, like, disconnect from everything because your energy level for the beginning of the week always starts up really high, and it's going down a little bit, and right at the end, you're just giving everything you last got and just, you can't wait for it to be over so you can rest and relax, and then all of a sudden, in a month, you're like, "Next reInvent. What am I doing? What am
It's
I thinking
happening.
about?"
The funny thing I always remember is the Friday afternoons in the airport lounges. It's this collection of zombies, and everybody looks like they've just been
Yep.
run over by trucks the entire week. And you kind of acknowledge each other's presence, and it's like, yeah, been there, done that, and we survived. Let's just get home.
Yeah, we do it over and over again because we look forward to it because the high of coming here and networking and learning and talking and meeting people and the conversations, the socialization is not something that you can easily soak in remotely. This is the event to like grab so much knowledge from people and to get some work done. Jeff, talk to me about the picture I saw on LinkedIn with you and Legos.
Oh, let's see. So I was invited way ahead of time to participate in a build for something that was called Dream. And the idea behind Dream, some of my colleagues in Europe put this together. The idea was that they wanted to actually show IoT in action, and they wanted to also show how AWS could help with energy conservation and energy management. So what they did is they built a Lego city with three distinct areas. There was an entertainment area, there was a residential area, and a critical services area. Critical services was the hospital and the police station, and they used light kits to illuminate all of these different parts. I was lucky enough to build the house from home alone, and so that was my contribution to this. And they on one of the sides of this really nice build, they also they had some solar cells. They were measuring the output from the solar cells, routing that into a Raspberry Pi. From there, they had AWS IoT Greengrass on the Raspberry Pi, posting all that data up to AWS, visualizing it on a Grafana dashboard. And then the fun thing about this was that there was a rule system in the cloud, and if the energy produced by the solar cells dropped below a certain level, below when the voltage level dropped, there were some rules and correlations between voltage and time of day and temperature. If that indicated that the solar cells were blocked or malfunctioning, the logic would actually cut the power to the non-critical parts of the city. So the hospital and the police station stayed operating and illuminated. The rest of the city would go dark. There was even a motorized Ferris wheel, which would stop when power was cut. So this was just a wonderful way to show a number of different parts of AWS in a tangible, real world way. And hats off to the team for taking all these different parts and connecting them and integrating them. There was also a chocolate factory that delivered chocolate to
That wasn't
a
shut
train.
down because that would be a little tough to shut down the chocolate factory for.
That one kept on going. There was actually this really cool ordering mechanism where you'd order chocolate on a tablet. It would message over to the factory, and the chocolate each of the different flavors of chocolate would go through on a little conveyor belt. There was a rule system, so when it reached the selected flavor of chocolate, it would push that off into a little train car. The train car would then proceed around the track and deliver it to the drop off point. So all these interesting little things, and you could talk about IoT and rules and dashboards and so forth in a very sterile way, but showing it right there in a very real world situation in a way that the audience could see what it means to take these things and put them together, I thought was a very effective way to connect and to share.
Okay, that's really cool. I wish I could see it being put together, how long it took to put together. And I think there's a whole like post or article you could do on this, on how they put it in, like a write up on how they, I'm sure they're going to write it up. Or did they have you writing it up to help them?
At this point, that we haven't done a write up, but I spent an hour there earlier this week with the project lead and with a camera crew. So there should be a nice video coming out soon.
I look forward to that. I'll definitely share it out on social media, the video and everything. Jeff, talk to me a little bit more about reInvent. I don't think this is a fair question to ask you because I want you to pick your favorite release or favorites release that happened this week because I know you enjoy all of them. But is there a favorite one that you can pick out?
So this is the point where one service is really happy and the n minus one services are just like kind of what about us. And the interesting way that we put the blog post together this year is that be right in the very beginning of October, we all went through as a team, and all the service teams briefed us for 3 days on all of their launches. And then each of us on on the blogging team, we picked a set of blog posts that we would focus on and write. And what I always like to do is pick a few that are kind of not easy, but the things I know really well, and then balance it off with a few things that I don't know at all. So I have some learning opportunities. Two that I think I really had a good time writing. Now I'm not saying favorites. I'm saying things I
All
actually
right,
enjoyed writing.
we won't put you on the spot for
Yes.
a favorite. Two of the things you
Um,
had a good time writing.
there was this one really interesting one where you can use Lambda functions to generate CloudWatch metrics. So that instead of just uploading metrics and storing them inside CloudWatch, this new model basically uses connectors so that anytime CloudWatch needs the values for a time range for this configured in metric, it calls out in real time to a CloudWatch function. And the CloudWatch function basically can then consult whatever external source of information it needs to do for those metrics. So the metrics are never stored internally, but that means that you might have application metrics that maybe you have to actually cook up on the spot based on live dynamic data, and it makes no sense to store them, but they can now be processed alongside effectively what you think of as the native CloudWatch metrics. So we launched that with a whole bunch of different connectors for you can pull data from RDS, from a couple of databases, I think from Redshift. There were some third-party connectors there as well. But each of these, when you deploy a connector, it's just deployed through a CloudFormation template, which sets up some IAM rules and sets up the Lambda function. Super cool way to pull external information into CloudWatch. So I really like that a lot. The other one is that for Amazon workspaces, we now have a thin client device, and it's about a little cube. It's like about 4 inches on a side. You plug in your keyboard, your display, and your mouse and your webcam, and then you log into your Amazon Workspace. And so this thin client, and I've been an Amazon Workspaces fan and user for going on a decade now. But this nice little device fits on your desktop. There's no local storage, there's no local software. So this is great for deploying in volume. Like if you have a call center and you need to give everybody access to a workspace and you don't want to give them expensive laptops, you don't want to worry about security, you don't want to worry about laptops vanishing with proprietary data on them, you could spin up hundreds or thousands of these really quickly. The device is like under $200, and it was super neat to set that up and go through the entire setup process. Actually, take some pictures of it in my home office, and I like to go for realism and just say, "Here it is," and I plugged it in myself and made it all work. And that's one of the real fun parts of my job is the diversity, always being on the edge of barely understanding sometimes, but then mastering it and say, "Okay, I've pushed the bounds of my knowledge and my skills just a little bit further."
Okay, I missed that release because when I use Workspaces, we actually did a thin client, but we had to purchase a laptop and we had to boot to a specific browser base for the thin client to work, and we got it to work and everything. And I'm a fan of Workspaces too because everything we utilized using our live streaming stuff, OBS, everything that was on it, we use Workspaces for a number of things because we had to stream way back when I was at AWS. Now you actually have this client that you can just plug in, up and running. You don't have to worry about it if somebody swipes it. You're not losing any company data.
Exactly. And so it's this tiny little cube. All you need is you plug it in, you take your 6-character workspaces registration code, enter that in, and you're connected and going. And super cool. I am exclusively on workspaces for work. And so if I'm at home or if I'm at the office or if I'm on the road, whatever device I'm using is just a connector to let me see my workspace. And that continuity I really appreciate. So rather than having to keep a bunch of different environments in sync and up to date, I'm just always logging into that same actual workspace.
Is this workspace available to purchase on AWS or Amazon?
This is actually on Amazon.com.
Uh,
It actually has an Amazon identifier, which we call an ASIN, and it is in the Amazon catalog
uh,
available for purchase.
No, I like that because Deep Racer is available on Amazon.com. Now I can get my stuff for AWS on Amazon.com. And then a lot of our swag that we're able to get is on Amazon.com.
Exactly.
It makes it easier because they've got the whole logistics in place already.
Right, and the funny thing is it took us a while to get to that point of being able to do that. There was a little bit of I think, a fun contradiction or paradox where we're part of this gigantic e-commerce company with a catalog and fulfillment and all those important things. Getting AWS items into the catalog took a while for reasons I was never actually, uh, informed of.
Jeff, I'm going to wrap up our conversation. I know you got a lot going on today. And before I do, reInvent is wrapping up. We're at Thursday. By the time this comes out, I want everybody to know that, reInvent does happen. Replays tonight. There are sessions on Friday. There's some replay sessions that will actually happen. What's next for you? What's happening after reInvent?
Alright, so after reInvent, I need to go and clean up all the AWS resources that I launched ahead of time. I've got several terabytes worth of NetApp ONTAP file systems I need to clean up. I've got all kinds of miscellaneous resources that I very carefully this year tagged everything, so I should be able to clean up. I like to leave them running until we've successfully launched. A little bit of backlog of just kind of personal things at home to clean up, but not too much. I actually like to keep all of my plates spinning even when I'm super busy in the run up to reInvent. So a little bit of cleanup, a little bit of kind of post reinvent relaxation and get ready for the next year. I've already got a lots of invites this year for could you please come to this city and state and country to present, and looking forward to actually probably, I don't know, between 4 and 6 AWS community days in various parts of the world, and maybe looking to get a little bit more out on the road than I have in years past.
That's pretty cool that you're still looking forward to all these community events. Actually, I know I said I got to wrap up, but my last question is how important it is to be part of the community and building a community.
It is absolutely my favorite part, and I think it is so important. When I was a teenager, I was part of one of the first computer clubs in the country. This is back in the 1970s, believe it or not, when most of our audience probably hasn't even heard of the 70s. So back in the 70s, I was part of this little computer club, and what I remember was how welcoming they were to me as a teenager, and the fact that no one asked about my age or cared about it, and I was there as a participant, as an equal, and I've never forgotten just how important that community is for those of us that are on the edge and we want to get closer to the center. We want to connect. We'd like to learn. And I see these community days today as just the same, just at a much larger scale. The same energy, the same enthusiasm, the fact that people show up just because they want to. It's not the case ever that your manager sends you to go to a community day after hours or on the weekend. People go out of their sheer enthusiasm for the cloud and their desire to learn. And that makes them the best audience.
I think building a community is one of the top things. Later on, we have an AWS Community Builder podcast. It's my way of giving back to them and everybody that's kind of put forth this effort. We're going to do it in this awesome studio. Jeff, I know you're always at the community events. AWS Community Builder had a party and everything here at reInvent. What was that like?
It was super fun. Again, getting to meet folks and to hear their stories and to hear that even in far-flung parts of the world that sometimes you have to think, I will have to really try hard to find those places on a map because I'm not geographically all that competent sometimes to think, where is these places? And to hear that in these places, they've got substantially sized AWS communities and that it's game changing for them. And in some cases, these places are going through some kind of economic change. They're going from one kind of economy to another. I talked to some gentleman today earlier, and he said his country doesn't have a lot in the way of natural resources, but tech is their big thing, and that their early commitment to AWS has made a huge difference for this country.
Jeff, thank you so much for joining me, especially at reInvent in this awesome studio. I really appreciate you carving out some time. I know you got a huge and busy schedule, but I really appreciate sitting down and talking with you.
Happy to do it, John.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching the Jon Myer podcast. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notify because we're out of here.